Okay. Okay. So it's amazing that, as you say, this is the first blues album you've been doing with the real blues, straight blues album you did with Gov't Mule. After playing so much music from anyone, from Pink Floyd to funk to funkadelic, just Scofield or whatever. And how was it that you forgot actually to do a blues album in all these years?
Well, it's always been on my list of things to do, but it's always been in the distance. One of these days I will do it. But I think it seemed like the right time. With the pandemic and lockdown. Um, I think most importantly, uh, during the whole year and a half of being at home and locked down, I was writing so much music, as I'm sure every songwriter across the world was doing. Um, when it got discussed that maybe we should consider making a blues record, my response was, well, I have all this new Gov't Mule material that I'm really anxious to record, so maybe we can do two records at the same time. Since we can't travel, we can't go on the road, we can't perform in public, maybe we just go in the studio for a long time and record two records at the same time. So once we had made that plan, everything sort of fell in place. Um, we found a studio that had the capability for us to set up in two different rooms. So one big room where we would set up for a normal Gov't Mule recording, and a adjoining smaller room with low ceilings where we could set up like we were on a small stage in a little club. And we recorded in what we called the blues room, with no headphones, very small amplifiers, everybody recording live, very close together. And we would do that late at night. We would go in the daytime and play the Gov't Mule songs until sometime in the nighttime. Then we would take a break and go into the blues room and play blues for several hours, and then call it a night and do the same thing the next day.
Yeah, it really comes out. I mean, when we listen to it, there's all this energy, this raw energy out of this live recording that you did. It sounds like you were unloading after working the whole day on the other stuff. In a way, you were
Yeah,
unloading whatever else was left. Is it like that?
yeah. And we were able to shut off our brains and stop thinking and just play blues.
And get
So it was
loose.
like releasing the tension, you know, which
Yeah.
is what blues is all about anyway. um, so it turned out to be a very good recipe, uh, and it kept us from getting too bogged down or overly focused on either one of the projects. I think having both things to contend with and to focus on in this particular case was a good thing, because we had so much time on our hands, which we normally would not have. We were in the studio longer than we've ever been in the studio before, but it was appropriate considering the situation.
Yeah. And can you tell us something more about how you made it happen in the other studio? I mean, the changes you made in the amplifiers and guitars, whatever made it closer to the blues in this other studio.
All the guitars and amplifiers, for the most part, were from the 1950s and 1960s. Um, the studio that we found was only about an hour and 15 minutes from my house. So we were able to go to my collection and get a truck, a semi truck, to take not only the Gov't Mule gear that we normally record with, but a lot of my old vintage gear from my collection, and take it all to the studio for the first time ever. I had never had the opportunity to record many of these instruments and many of these amplifiers. So we just got them all together and would try different combinations and see what was working. And if something sounded good, we would record it right away for the next song. Um, and the room was very small, so we were very close together. Uh, and I was singing through a monitor, no headphones, and it was as if we were performing on a little stage in a small club, except we were in a circle looking at each other. Um, and it was recorded to analog tape, but we do that normally anyway. But we thought it was very important that the sound for the blues record be completely different than the sound for the main Gov't Mule record. The blues record was intended to sound like it was recorded somewhere between 1955 and 1975, whereas the Gov't Mule main record was just meant to capture us today.
Yeah.
So they're very, very different from each other, and completely different equipment. Everything is different.
Any particular guitar amp that is worth mentioning because it had a important part in defining the song or whatever?
Well, the amps that I used the most were I have an old Supro amplifier, late 50s, early 60s, and I have a late 50s Gibson Vanguard and a late 50s Gibson Skylark. And my friend George Alessandro, who makes amplifiers for myself and Derek Trucks and David Gilmour and some people, he made me this little small amplifier with like one 8-inch speaker, I believe, or maybe it's a 10-inch speaker. And sometimes I would take 2 or 3 of those amps and run them together at the same time. And I would keep one in the room close to me, and the other 1 or 2 would be far away, but being mic'd in a big room in a big space. The guitars, my 59 Les Paul, my 61 ES335, a 63 ES345 that belongs to my friend Paul Ziegler, and a 67 ES355 that Greg Allman gave to me. And then I also used several Dan Electro guitars, a Dan Electro Pro 1 for the slide guitar on the Elmore James song, Blues Before Sunrise.
Yeah.
And that's the Dan Electro through a Gibson Skylark, which is a tiny little amp with one 6-inch or 8-inch Jensen speaker. And I used some old Epiphone guitars as well. I think there's almost a different guitar on every song, but everything, for the most part, everything was very old. There were a couple of songs where I played a guitar that was not quite as old. Maybe it was from the 80s or 90s or something, but only a couple of those.
Yeah. What about the acoustics? It sounds like mahogany guitars, small-bodied mahogany guitars like 0018s or something like that. What were there?
On the song Heavy Load, I have a 1929 Gibson L1,
Oh,
like Robert Johnson played, and that's what I'm playing. And Danny Lewis is playing a 60s Gibson Hummingbird. And he's also playing the same Hummingbird on Black Horizon, which is the other acoustic
Yeah.
song, and I'm playing a 1939 National Steel Body resonator guitar
Sorry, it
that
is
I
a
just
resonator.
got from Derek Trucks.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that when you go into this record, it starts quite close to the original, like when you play the Elmore James
Yeah,
song. I mean, it's not so no far away from the original. And then
right.
you stretch, you start stretching in a way while keeping the blues sound. It's interesting when you cover things like the what's it the Tom Waits song or the Howling Wolf song sounds like Metallica meets Muddy Waters. I mean, there's this heavy riff. It's heavy.
Yeah, the Howlin' Wolf song, I asked her for water, which I guess goes all the way back to Charlie Patton. Um, that's one of the first songs we recorded, and it was around midnight, and we only played one take. There was never a second take of that song. We played it once, and everybody kind of looked around like, "Yep, that felt good." When we never looked back. Uh, it's very nasty and heavy.
Yeah,
I guess it's the heaviest song on the record. Uh, I wanted to kind of maintain and capture the nastiness of and the darkness of the original Howlin' Wolf version because it's very nasty. Um, but I didn't want to perform it the same way, so we changed the feeling musically. But the recording has that same kind of dirty sound. The Tom Waits song "Make It Rain." Um, I'm singing sometimes through the bullet microphone,
yeah.
and sometimes through a SM58, and going back and forth. And of course the bullet microphone is picking up the entire band too, and it's run through an amplifier and it's very distorted. Uh, you know, we we really approached everything on a song by song basis. We looked at every song differently. And it was important that we just get a sonic picture that felt appropriate and then record the song as quickly as possible.
Yeah, good. So what about apart from what's it, Heavy Load Blues? You wrote it. There are other songs that you wrote in this record, other songs of your own.
Yes.
Which one?
It's about half covers and half original songs. So I wrote the second track, which is "Hole in My Soul,"
Yeah,
but it's recorded and performed with the horn section. We were trying to go for like a Bobby Blue Bland
yeah,
sort of sound. Um, and then "Love Is a Mean Old World" is an original song as well.
yeah,
Uh, "Wake Up Dead," which is track three, uh, that's one of the last songs that we recorded. And when I wrote it, it was much slower. And when we started to record, it occurred to everyone that we had plenty of slow songs and mid-tempo songs. We needed one more up-tempo song. So someone came up with the idea of making it faster, which seemed to really work good. So that changed at the last moment. Then there's also "If Heartaches Were Nickels" that I wrote a long time ago that Joe Bonamassa recorded, but I have never recorded it before.
yeah.
Uh, and then both of the acoustic songs, "Heavy Load" and uh, "Black Horizon."
Black Horizon. Okay. So, by the way, "Love Is a Mean Old Word" sounds very good. Very, I mean, comes out like an impressive song. So I really liked it.
Thank you.
Yes, it's not the only one. I mean, but it's
Yes.
very interesting.
Well, it's a little different. It's not quite as traditional as some of the other ones. It has a chorus or a bridge or whatever, where a lot of blues songs maybe don't. Uh, so it's a little bit more modern approach, but I really like that one a lot. On that one, I played an electric resonator guitar. It's called a plumber,
Mhm.
Plummer. And it was the first time that I had the opportunity to record that guitar. It's hard to reproduce the resonator sound electrically, but
Yeah,
we
it
did a
is.
good job with that
Good. So, being this a blues record, I don't know if you mind a general question about the blues scene now in the States, if you don't mind,
one.
because I was struck by what happened with Kenny Wayne Shepherd and the National Blues Association and all the polemics that came out, and apart from the specific stuff, I mean, it seems like below under. There is something boiling there. I mean, some problem with the people who are running the blues scene. I mean, what's real? Can you give us your uh, insider opinion about what's happening in the blues scene in the States? Is there really any trouble now between black musicians and white musicians, or what?
I'm not really aware of the issues that you're referring to, even with Kenny, who I've known a long time. Um, I don't think there's any problems between the musicians, maybe politically with the organizations, but I don't really pay a lot of attention to that that part of it. You know, we're not, myself or Gov't Mule, we're not really part of the traditional blues scene, although I have a lot of friends that are in that scene, and from time to time, you know, I would do something like I presented an award virtually for the Blues Awards. But as far as the scene itself, I think it's very healthy right now, more so than it has been in a long time. Meaning, there's a lot of great young blues musicians and artists that are coming up, and I think that's the most important thing. Is that it's it's really important that young people keep blues alive, and that can only happen if the new crop of blues artists is really good. And I think we have some really good ones right now.
Yeah, like Marcus King that you produced in the second record.
Yeah,
Marcus King.
and Marcus is not as traditional
Yeah, but
as a lot. There's this girl Cerise who is fantastic. Kingfish is
yeah,
really great. Uh, but I'm seeing videos and hearing songs by different young artists that are very impressive. And I don't think it's always been that way in recent years. I think there was a lot of time when the blues wasn't so healthy.
and what about the audience? Can you feel new young people coming also to this kind of music?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't. I think still the blues doesn't get the recognition that it deserves in America. The young people, some people are discovering it and attracted to it, but it's still a very small percentage of young people. I think uh, it's going to take someone really good to change that, and hopefully that can be the case now. You know, I guess part of our mission with this record is to hopefully bring some young people toward the blues as well, but I can't think of it that way. I only think of it in the way of we're doing what makes us happy.
Yeah, of course. And speaking about that, uh, I've been told that you might go on tour with this kind of music with a smaller rig or something like that.
We've been discussing the possibility of doing 2 sets, which we do quite often anyway, but one set would be a blues set with a much smaller setup and small amplifiers and stripped down production in front of the normal Gov't Mule set. And then we would take a break and remove all of that and play a normal Gov't Mule show. So it would be the blues band opening for the rock band, I guess.
Good luck to the sound engineer.
Yeah, he will have a lot of work to do.
Double job. Okay.
Yeah,
So thank you for this nice talk, and
absolutely.
I hope this record is going to have a big time.
Well,
Okay.
thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Thank you again.
Bye bye.